It's so thrilling to me to see so many players step into Final Fantasy XI and honestly whatever their old school MMORPG of choice is. And that's what we're kind of getting in the current state of the MMORPG. And today I'm just happy to share, if you guys haven't seen the news, they've actually put in server congestions on some of the servers, Ashura being the server that I play on Final Fantasy XI, as they have tweeted this out because the games are surging again in popularity. And I like this meme from Worldwide Warrior Light who says, well, Yoshi P did tell us to play other games, but why play that old game with the Final Fantasy Dawn Trail White Knight, looking at all the gamers who are actively enjoying Final Fantasy XI, either for the first time or like me, coming back after a very, very long hiatus with the game. And so I want to talk to you guys today about how gamers are frustrated. Obviously, we're looking at 7.3 right on the horizon for Final Fantasy 14. I personally am looking forward to getting to sit down and play Dawn Trail, and I got a little bit of an update on that for you guys. But also, I do have an update on this on Chris and what I can share about what's going on with him. I'll save that more for the end of the video. Anybody who knows Chris and me and him from Work to Game will know that he's generally a real private person. So I did ask for, if I could give him an update, and I'm going to share that with you guys. If you're the praying type, please keep them in your prayers. And if you're the thoughts type, your thoughts, I guess, also do good. But anyway, I digress. I want to talk about, especially having sat down and watched the live letter, my first live letter in a long time, the thoughts that I actually had going into it, as well as some of the announcements they made. You guys haven't seen Phoenix Downs, now stackable, now usable. Honestly, this is the most exciting thing because hopefully it points to what they can do with 8.0 and actually start addressing some of the job identity homogenization. I doubt they're going to go in and do an overhaul on the gear system, but one can always dream. That all being said, I kind of want to highlight this post from Llama Todd, who kind of breaks it down in a lot of really key, succinct areas. And I'm going to give you guys my thoughts as we go through this list in and of itself. I still think there's really good things coming to Final Fantasy 14. I personally am looking forward to actually stepping in and playing Dawn Trail, even though it does not seem like a well-received story. It does not seem like a well-received expansion, but Final Fantasy has recovered before. Ultimately, I think that's going to be interesting to see where they go from here, what kind of work and investment they put into it. And if you're enjoying Final Fantasy 14 right now, awesome. Continue to enjoy it. Don't let anything I share in this video ruin that experience for you. I'm just a guy who covered this game for a very, very long time and has since stepped away and really does appreciate and miss it to a degree, but that is what it is. Now let's let Llama Todd take over from here. He says, I get that people don't want to hear negative things, but let's face reality. There are no major quality of life or UI updates in over a decade. They did confirm the chat bubbles are finally coming into the game itself. And if you guys probably can hear maybe kids in the background, welcome to my house. The mobile version getting features that we can't get and adding in retail that FOMO and resentment. I think that is one of the key aspects that we have to be honest about. And from just a level of curiosity and business and analysts is there going to be a future in which the mobile becomes the premier version of this game, being that it's no subscription to play? I've kind of talked about it where I was like, honestly, if I was going to sit down and start playing this game with my kids, it would be the mobile version as opposed to like having a sub and having PCs. We have already so much access going into it. Yeah, because when I just think about the devices that we have in the house that are playable from a PC and console perspective, honestly, I could see that if it will be interesting to see if they bring the mobile client to like something like the Nintendo Switch or the Switch 2, being that it is going to be a free to play game, and that kind of experience does open up that experience to more and more players. And while the other thing I would say is like, I just don't see a future for anybody who is out there thinking someone's going to go from the mobile game to the PC or console version of this game and paying a subscription. If they wanted to play it already, they have plenty of opportunities. The free to play trial has existed for a very long time, and it is incredibly generous. So I do see that the mobile version could actually lead to more resentment in the long run, especially because they were able to build that from the ground up. Whereas in 14's original state, they really kind of had to get it done and get it done quickly. And I think a lot of that has actually led to the long-term problems. These are problems that probably everybody wants to have. You want a popular game that everybody's playing. But anyway, we'll just continue on. He goes, DC travel killed the Party Finder North American region. Why isn't it all combined and shared? This is just natural tech debt stuff. As to why that has not yet occurred, I do wonder if they are moving in that direction, and I support it because I look at Guild Wars 2 as a really good example where they basically take the zones and they push everybody into it. When you look at the exploratory zones and some of the things they're able to do in that kind of content, it's the most exciting stuff in my opinion. It's something that every time we have one of those zones, I go, I wish the entire game of Final Fantasy XIV kind of had this system, that it existed in the open world. And the way you do that and the way you balance that is that you push people into the instance. And 14 has some of that technology already present, as when they have expansions and patches, they can instance out a specific zone as needed. But ultimately, if they made that all in the background, that would, I think, help solve a lot of those problems. It goes on to say massive tech debt due to the old infrastructure preventing real innovation and updates. I honestly wonder, because they have done some real work when you saw the multiple dies coming in. While that I think only affects a certain part of the population, it is interesting to see them putting that investment. I would say and argue they haven't really put the investment in the right buckets all the time, and they have definitely favored certain groups, I would say smaller minorities within the overall ecosystem, to kind of appease them. And that is a lot of the fashion game, which I think old school MMO players really feel like transmog, as popular as it is, it ends up more serving, you know, vanity as opposed to like actual content and things that you want to go and try and strive. But that's another video for another day perhaps. Anyway, he goes, no clear long-term roadmap of new innovation updates, and likely nearly every other MMOs out there. So 14 has not needed a roadmap because its roadmap was driven off action. I think Yoshi P really kind of recognized early on that they don't trust us, so there's no point in telling them what we're doing. It's best to show them what we're doing, and they did that with the 3-month patch cycle. Now it's at 4.5. I think that is really one key issue. And in fact, if we actually scroll down a little bit, Lamatot's calling out the 4.5 month patch cycle. And yeah, it is a very long patch cycle, and it leads to more burnout, more drama posts, more frustration, and that tends to change the algorithm. In fact, I saw somebody comment on one of my old videos talking about all the frustration they're seeing online about the game makes them want to actually step away from the game. So that in and of itself is interesting. It's like I just ignore any of the discourse. If you're having fun, continue to have fun, but you do you. Anyway, on that note, the roadmap aspect is an interesting point, because they have kind of hit this point where patch cycles are long. The roadmap has been so predictable, I think that is actually leading them to some frustration. And so putting out a kind of a comprehensive roadmap, especially when they talk about a new 10-year plan, of which they're 2 years into it, and based off of that, the fact that the expansion most likely won't be coming till 2027 right now, that's kind of the estimate, being that timeline wise, when you're starting to look at, when 7.4 is going to drop, that's a real possibility. We'll see what happens in the long run, but I think that could end up helping kind of set that expectation, because Chris isn't doing the spreadsheet streams. Like, the community knows when the updates are coming, and they know pretty much what's going to be in those updates, but a roadmap might end up doing a lot of good in terms of reestablishing trust, as long as they're able to hit the items on the roadmap. If you can't hit the items on a roadmap, no point in putting out a roadmap, or you're just going to cause a lot more frustration and grief. He goes on to say, peak WoW Exodus COVID lockdown record Twitch viewership and parasocial behavior, plus amazing Shadowbringers and Endwalker MSQ, now returning to the pre-Storm Blood numbers. This was expected, but the drop-off is shocking for many. I think the thing that I see more shocking for a lot of players is when they come in and they get love bombed basically by just doing the MSQ, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I can be like with these numbers and this support, I can see how I can do this full time on Twitch. And then they finish the MSQ, and then boom, they're right back to where they started, because ultimately people are really just that is an interesting culture that has kind of formed around streaming, around Final Fantasy XIV, that continues to this day. He goes on, he says, absolute dogwater new player experience they're using from their early 2000 busted website, and wading through mountains of MSQ just to catch up with friends who are max level. Man, that's like, while there are definitely problems with Final Fantasy XI getting signed up, and I really would love to see them put more investment and time into it, at the end of the day, the level sync, the being able to jump in with friends, there are a lot of strengths that I think, and I've always looked at it as like the problems that Final Fantasy XIV they have been solved. It's not like Final Fantasy XI doesn't have its own challenges and problems, mind you. It's not, no game is going to be perfect and everybody's going to kind of gravitate towards it, but ultimately that's where the dream would be the Sandpark MMO. Blend the Final Fantasy XI and the Final Fantasy XIV together and then you have, I think, a much better experience. One that, especially when the Final Fantasy XI side, the reason why sandbox MMOs are so interesting to me personally is that the players are the content, and so you can do so many different things. You have so many different ways that you can kind of approach, and you're going to find that some things are very challenging and some things aren't, and so in just the fact that with the trust system and to be able to party up and level sync out in the open world, for me, I find that to be very exciting and refreshing. He goes on to say either 8.0 delivers ARR 2.0 with resources and money pumped into a visibly aging game to give it new life, or it will never happen, and those resources will be allocated for a new MMO or IP. Yeah, honestly, I think that would be really enjoyable. It gives them the ability to start fresh. You blanket that subscription model so that you would get 11, 14, this new MMO, and whenever there's content droughts and stuff, you get people going and willing to check out all the different games. He goes on to say, yes, raids are fun and content is pretty good in parts, but it's short-lived. 4.5 months patch cycles are too long, and 2.5 years between expansions is rough for what we're getting, especially as we start to see more and more MMOs kind of step up. New World's got its big update this fall. They seem to be hitting kind of a big update every fall, and yeah, the game spikes and then it falls off, spikes and then falls off. It's very Destiny-esque in its design. And then he kind of concludes with this. Obviously, he's glad that people are enjoying the honeymoon phase with the MMO, but if you're an old gamer like him, you see things for what they are. And he says they need to devote the proper resources going forward, or they will slowly continue to bleed out veteran players. I think that's always been the case. It's when we think about the people in the honeymoon phase versus those who are veterans, it's almost like you're talking two completely different languages. The honeymooner doesn't understand the critiques and the frustrations the veteran has because, wow, everything's new and fresh and you got so much content. But at some point you're like, oh, I've done all this content and then now I'm in this waiting cycle. Wait, why am I not having those same kind of feelings? It's the dopamine rush that I think is true with any game, especially any games as a service game. He goes on to say, basically now if you're still playing, you have a house and you don't want to lose it, and Yoshi P wants that rent. You have social or RP circle you hang out with. You really don't do battle content. He's spamming legacy ultimates until you build your own island and house made purely out of totems, and then you're milking, stalling MSQ, and still progging current tier. I think that's interesting because that does apply to content creators more than I think just normal players. Because if you're not making content around a game, there's no milking and stalling the MSQ. I'd be curious if that's you and why. I don't understand it. And then he says, otherwise you're a Lego person singing everything is awesome from the SE White Knight. And so this is, I think, a really interesting critique. It's one that we brought up. I've continued to critique this game, and I think the best solution is stepping away, not just from the game for any period of time, but from content creation around a game specifically. That's why it's like trying to make a career around a game specifically does have, I think, some major red flags because you're dependent. And then at the same time, you find if you start rubbing the community in the wrong way that supports you, then your livelihood goes up and down. It seems like an unnecessary risk in the long run of things, but you do you in that regards. Speaking of which, former full-time content creator Chris from Work to Game, they have really been hit hard in the recent months. I'm not going to go into like who, what, when, where, and why, but he has a dearly beloved family member in the ICU fighting for their life, and also they unfortunately lost a family member at the same time. So they kind of got hit with a double whammy. In fact, the day it all went down before we got the update and the call, we were talking, he was saying, yep, sitting down, finally getting started editing some videos again. And I was so thrilled because I was like, yes, just keep posting. Just start posting, Chris. People want to hear from you. So I don't know when and if Chris will return at any point in time. I know he talks about it in terms of the grand scheme of things, the long run. But just keep my friend in your prayers. I would appreciate that. And hopefully when we do see him again, we can kind of love bomb him, give him a boost, and hopefully he'll start creating more content for everybody again. But time will tell. So until then, yeah, just give me your thoughts and prayers. I appreciate that. On that note, guys, I'm just going to wrap up the video. I know this has been long. You probably had a lot of interruptions, probably a lot of background noise. I do appreciate for those of you who did stick through to the end of this video. It means the world to me. I really hope that you enjoyed. I really hope to see you in my next video. But until then, take care.